because the next speaker I want to introduce is a very exciting person, and that's why he's our keynote speaker today. Most of us know him. He's Mr. Douglas Emeka Okor. He's a neurosurgeon, and he's exceptional in many ways. He graduated, or he finished his training here to become a consultant in 2016 and headed back to Nigeria to practice neurosurgeon at its highest level in Nigeria, and he has been doing that. What marks him apart is I think is the word passion. He has passion for his specialty, but passion for the Nigerian patient. He says, when you ask him, why do you do it? He says, the Nigerian patients are worth it. And that's why he does it. Please, Emeka, come up and speak to us.
So, okay. Can I get my slide up, please? So, the Nigerian diaspora, a powerhouse with a large dose of knowledge, skill, competence, and experience for transformation of the Nigerian healthcare system. You need to deploy such a powerhouse. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, special guests and guests. Douglas Emeka Okor is my name. Brain surgeon and an individual who is extremely passionate about progressive and positive change in the Nigerian healthcare system. Next slide, please. So today, I'm going to be talking about a global perspective in transforming healthcare in Nigeria. But actually, my focus is going to be on the Nigerian diaspora. I want to actually talk to you guys. Now, I say, let's think right, act right, and spend right. Think right. What are the philosophies, the thought patterns, the concepts that actually guide you? Because those are the things that will actually tell what kind of actions you take and where you actually put your resources. And remember, your resources are not just your money. It's also your time, your expertise, and all that as well. Next slide, please. So, one of the reasons why we need to think right, act right, and spend right is that whatever we do, specifically in healthcare, we need to deliver things that are efficient and effective, isn't it? I'm sure we all know Nigeria. I coined this in 2015. Make things faster, easier, better, safer, and simpler. That is exactly what we want, ladies and gentlemen. Next slide. So, a little bit about that gentleman up there. I graduated from University of Benin. Greatest Uniben. And I remember then, I used to be this guy who used to do freestyle rapping, did dreads once upon a time, did some K-rolls and stuff like that. Used to go to parties, organized one of the biggest carnivals in medical school. And so when I told my friends in medical school in my penultimate year that I was going to be a brain surgeon, they were like, ah, and they all laughed at me. Guess who's laughing now? But key thing is, I got into the UK 2006 to pursue my dreams, and it was, not funny at all, but at the end of the day, completed my training and actually moved to Nigeria. So I've been back in Nigeria now for 8 good years. And of course, the question people always ask me is, how's it been? And of course, what do you think my response will be? Great? the good, the bad, and the ugly. Definitely sweet, bitter, and sour, isn't it? So let's start, next slide. Let's start with the bitter and sour. So we all know what the basic cultural milieu is like in Nigeria. Okay, you know who I am. Yukoto, Dobale, like we say, and stuff like that. Now, comes in this 6'4" guy, baritone voice, okay? Generally, is not known to Koto. Professor Obaseki, the CMD of UBTH, knew me when I was doing my house job, okay? And then is this guy who's a sort of a disruptor and challenges conventional wisdom, okay? So how do you think this kind of guy is fitting into that system generally? Some conflict, isn't it? Okay, but the key thing is that one of the ways that initially I was providing more of private, I was more in the private sector, trying to push the barriers of how we can actually deliver complex neurosurgical care. But in the last sort of going to 3 years now, I've been in the public sector. And the key question is, why the public sector? Because clearly, when it comes to the issue of availability of complex care, yeah, fantastic, the private sector, okay? But when it comes to actually providing that care down the line to a significant number of Nigerians, it's a struggle. And so if I'm really passionate about moving the needle in healthcare in Nigeria, then probably we need to actually do something in the public sector as well, in it. Okay. So a couple of slides there. That's the tattoo on my arm. That was for my 40th birthday 8 years ago, from my wife. Quite painful. And of course, when you go down the line there on that slide there, you can see that fair-skinned lady there. That's the lady that's actually walked this path with me. It's not behind, it's beside every successful. And of course, when it comes to talking about engaging, okay, with Nigeria, the diaspora engaging with Nigeria, of course, those of us who know her knew that she threw her hat in the ring with the Labour Party in the Edo State process for the election the last time. So a round of applause for her for that. Okay, they say talk is cheap sometimes, isn't it? Next slide. So Douglas Emeka Okor is sort of the poster child for reverse brain gain, for brain gain or reverse brain gain. Okay? And so I'm just giving you this slide to just give you sort of a flavor, okay, of what people like me and my team have been up to. Okay, so first slide there, top there, lady in her 60s, and she comes in with issues, with problem with the vision, and you can see that dumbbell-shaped thing there, that's a pituitary tumor, and then we had an operation for her through the nose, and that's her scan on the other side, which shows that tumor is gone and her vision actually improved. Second slide there is complex spinal surgery, complex spine surgery, patient who had problems with degenerative spine disease in the lower back, and also some instability on the spine, and we've decompressed and we put some screws there. First slide there is a chap who is also in his 60s as well, has some issues with TB of the spine in the neck, okay, compression of the spinal cord, and what we do is that we take a little bit of bone from the hip there, okay, the area crest there, and slot in there and actually put a plate at the front, and Jetman also improves, okay. Fourth slide there is a lady in her 60s, all the way from Benin, coming to Lagos, okay, had a subarachnoid hemorrhage, a bleed from an aneurysm, and patient came in and had the aneurysm clipped. You can see the aneurysm on that side with the right with the arrow there, and then there's a clip there. Patient survived. Next slide, please. Okay, so a 9-year-old boy had this massive brain tumor with what we call hydrocephalus, fluid pressure in the head. Also came from Benin as well. Okay, run into lots of trouble, and that is before the operation. You can see the tumor there. The eyes at the front, and tumor is gone. On that scan, you can see that there's fluid pressure in the head, and then that's gone as well. Next slide, please. 20-month-old baby. Similar tumor, really, really large there. That's before, and then you can see tumor is gone after the operation is done. Next slide, please. This is a lady who has a tumor almost in the center of her brain. Okay, center of her brain. And here, what we did is that we took the lead off there, went in between the two halves of the brain, over the nerve to the eye, into what we call the third ventricle, and took the tumor out. Left a little bit of what we call the pituitary stalk. Okay, next slide, please. And this is a recent patient that I looked after, has what we call a Chiari malformation, where what we call the foramen magnum is really full. And you can see there on that circle there that he actually has a fluid, a core of fluid within what we call the medulla oblongata. Okay? And 6 months later, after doing what we call the foramen magnum decompression, or a craniocervical decompression, you can actually see that there's some improvement there. That whole thing has gone. The syrinx is still there. Hopefully within the next year when we repeat that scan, that's better. Next slide. Now, like I said, poster child for reverse brain gain or brain gain, okay? This is just to give you an idea of the possibilities, okay? Now, this is something that you can all read that. This is something from a gentleman that I looked after recently who also had a complex spinal procedure for his lower back. Next slide, please. So, when it comes to the capabilities for delivery of complex care in Nigeria, okay, things are really happening in Nigeria. And that's a good news story. So we can give a round of applause for that. That's a good news story. So when you look at places like, for example, in Abuja, almost the whole, when you look at things like complex orthopedic surgery, spine surgery, kidney transplants and stuff like that, all that happening. When you go to Lagos, including all that as well, you also have interventional radiology. I'm sure some of us here have watched some videos recently of endovascular coilings and a patient who came with a stroke and stuff, and then had endovascular treatment for all that. When you look at Enugu, orthopedics, neurosurgery, look at a place like Kano, definitely neurosurgery, spine surgery, okay? And then when you look at places like Owerri, you're looking at some things happening there as well, okay? Now, that's the nice part for us to clap and give a round of applause about. Now, let's go to the one. Let me make you sad a little bit. Next slide, please. Now, these are the challenges that we all know in Nigeria. We all know about this. Okay, there's no need to bore ourselves with this. Who doesn't know about this? We all know about this, don't we? Next slide, please. Now, this is the reality, okay? When you look at Nigeria, contemporary Nigeria now, okay, in the Buhari, the 8 years of Buhari, we're complaining, isn't it? But in the last 1+ years, you understand? If you look at what we call the Sustainable Development Goals, there are 17. Sure, we can count. 1, 2, 3. Will we say that poverty is a key issue we're dealing with in Nigeria now? Do we think that hunger is a problem that we're really dealing with in Nigeria now? Now, guess what? Out of 17 of them, what's number 3? It is actually that important. But do you think your government, and I want you guys to really tell the truth and really say that, do you think your governments in Nigeria at national level and subnational level, do you think they really take this seriously in terms of a priority? Seriously, do they? Next slide. Now, these are some of the figures that came out of the National Bureau of Statistics, but this was in 2022 November. 133 million multi-dimensionally poor people. Now, those dimensions are the simple, basic things. So you're talking about 63%. Now, what do you think things will, but where do you think that number will be standing now, as of today? With things happening in Nigeria? It's 133 million plus, isn't it? So you can know where your plus will be. Next slide. And of course, these are some of the things in terms of the multi-dimension that we talk about. Next slide. Okay, so I'm just going to sort of, you understand, just run us through, navigate through chronologically, since this government came in, some of the few things, okay, in terms of policies and programs that they've actually come up with. And the reason why I want to say this is that, because remember, I said that in this talk, I'm actually talking to you guys as the Nigerian diaspora. I talked in the beginning, I started by saying that you guys are a powerhouse. Okay, so universal health coverage last year. The government launched this initiative. Okay, I don't know if anybody watched my interview after this. I was massively excited. I was like, wow, you mean the president himself? Of course, Dr. Lausa, who is here, Professor Pate, all the governors, they all sat down in one place, talked about the sector-wide approach, signed a compact. Wow, I can't remember this happening anytime. So that means that they are not getting to a point where healthcare is actually that important. And it is important because the Nigerian patients are worth it. Next slide. Okay, so by February, they talked about these 6 to 16 hospitals where, 6 to 16 hospitals where, they were talking about this improving things and bringing on radio oncology equipment and stuff, isn't it? This was in February. And so they said that in the next 12 to 18 months, that you should see things coming on board. The reason why I put this one is that I hope that you as MANSAG, ANPA, CANPAD, all these people who represent healthcare, Nigerian healthcare professionals, I hope you're going to be asking them about these things. There's no free freedom. Positive pressure. You must ask them these questions. Because the Nigerian patients are worth it. Next slide. So let's run through this quickly. Okay, April, they approved the establishment of these health fellows. Next slide. And then that one there. So that's 25 billion for 8,800 facilities. Please, can we do the maths? So 25 billion divided by 8,800 facilities. And then you look at some of the monies that the government spent, the vice president's house, and stuff like that. So what I'm saying, see, let's understand something. You cannot say that, man, looking at the way Nigeria is, that you sit back, you watch them and things will change. That's why I said it's the issue of positive pressure. Next slide. And of course, NEMSAS is the Nigerian Emergency Management Service and Ambulance System. They conduct a one-day training. I think, was it Chidi was talking about emergency care in Nigeria and stuff like that. 1 day. 1 day training. Next slide. No, but what I'm saying, these are questions that you have to ask, and I'll tell you why. Next slide. Okay, so they disbursed 12 million gateways. Next slide. Let's keep this running, because they're telling me that my time is going. And then, of course, this was launched in August. When it comes to the issue of white papers, policies, programs, launchings, it's not difficult to. When it is the issue of transforming these things to things that impact in the real lives of people. That is where the gap is. But the question is, what is your own role as a diaspora? Next slide. Okay. And of course, it's just about concepts and about how you think as a people. Okay? Maybe those guys know how to lobby more, but the question is, are these guys or are healthcare professionals, are they less important than these guys? And of course, you question, when your leaders and your politicians, when they come outside to Nigeria, do they come to meet these guys or do they come to meet you? Next slide. Very important. If you want transformation, only Nigerians can transform Nigeria for Nigerians. If you like, yes, you do have all the donor agencies and the rest of them and people who support you technically, like some of the things that the people have talked about, and stuff like that. But if you truly want to transform, nobody can like you more than yourself. Sorry. Next slide, please. So, a few messages quickly. Sorry, you have to engage and get involved. There are 2 key areas in Nigeria. Have you heard that thing before when they say, when Nigeria happens to you? When Nigeria happens to you. From the point of view as the people in the diaspora, what are the 2 key areas where that things can happen to you that you're really worried about? What are the 2 of them? Security and absolutely, and health is specifically in emergency healthcare, isn't it? So this is that serious. Be angry. I remember during COVID, I was interviewed in Arise TV, and then somebody sent a message to my wife. Was like, why is he so angry? But the question is that, why are you not angry? No, I'm asking you the question, why are you not angry enough? But the question is, what are you using your anger for? How are you going to translate that anger? What action is going to come out on that? You are privileged. I gave you that statistic, 133 million plus. Sorry, those people cannot speak for themselves. They are hoping that you are the ones that are going to speak for them and stand in the gap for them. Don't expect your host countries to have any, you understand? So don't expect to be respected by your host countries. See, I suspect very strongly that the respect that the Western powers have for China, probably India and stuff like that, in the 1980s, that is probably different now. If things are not working in your country, there's a tendency for the people in your host countries to look at you and like, I was speaking to one of my reverend fathers the other day, and he was like, when he went, saw one of his colleagues, I said, sorry, you can see what's happening in your country. Next slide. I'm coasting home now. The changes we want to see in terms of transformation, it's a marathon and not a sprint. Sorry, it's not going to happen overnight. It's a marathon. Transformation without you, my dear brothers and sisters, is not possible. And that is the truth. Look at all the countries that have done well. Even the UK here, during the transatlantic slave trade and stuff like that, it was the diaspora that made them what they are. Nigeria cannot do well without you, please. Driving availability, affordability, and accessibility of care for safety and quality, you will play significant roles. Basically, I'm saying the same thing. Legacy for the next generation. Ashanti, my daughter is here. Ashanti, thank you very much for the slides. They look very beautiful. Ashanti graduated recently with a first class from the University College London in law. Now, why am I bringing Ashanti up? Because I'm talking about legacy. During Ashanti's studies, Ashanti used to tell me, her mom, that, oh man, I need to do this part of law. They make money there. Oh, money is so important there. And then Ashanti graduated, and Ashanti called me at some point after graduation. She said, Daddy, do you know what? I'm more interested in things like inequalities in healthcare and stuff like that. I actually want to build my capacity over the next few years so that I can actually contribute to my community. Tears came from my eyes. What legacy are we going to leave for the next generation? And of course, sacrifices must be made. Freedom is not free. Next slide, and I'm ending now. So the key thing is that Nigerian diaspora professionals, key thing, your major role is going to be support and training. You know that last policy from Ministry of Health about immigration and stuff like that. Can you please tell them that they should do more work to keep people in Nigeria? If you're going to look at the sheer numbers of people that you're saying, oh, you want to bring back, no, you're not going to bring that much people. So focus on supporting the people who are back home and keeping them back home. That's really, really important. But your role is mainly going to be more of support and training in reality. And of course, digital technology. Fumi from Mobile Health talked about that a lot. Medical missions, they are nice, but when it comes to sustainable impact, there are a few questions there. Positive pressure, like I said, positive pressure. Please, sorry. Your federal governments and your state governments are not just going to be on their own, have a light bulb moment and say, oh, do you know what? Oh, we've repented. We are going to be very good now. Sorry. You need positive pressure. Okay? Next, I think this is the last slide. And so we need to do all this and keep pushing because we need to think right about the people because the Nigerian patients are worth it. We need to take the right actions that have the underplanes of the right kind of thinking because the Nigerian patients are worth it. We need to spend right. You only deploy your resources to things that you think that are important. Okay? Again, because the Nigerian patients are worth it. Thank you very much, people. God bless the Medical Association of Nigeria in Great Britain, and God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.